Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Note to Self, the 150th episode of Note to Self, to be exact. I am so excited to be sitting here recording today, just reflecting on the previous 150 episodes. This has been an incredible journey for me. It has been so much fun, and it's been imperfect. I feel like following up the last episode, I have to say there's been moments in time where I've been on a roll with this podcast and then I've taken breaks, almost approached it like seasons. I started this when I was living in Bali and I'm presently living in Mexico City right now. So much has changed and evolved in my life since beginning this podcast. It's been a beautiful journey and I'm just so grateful to each and every single one of you who has been listening, who has been a part of this journey. It's been a wonderful way to connect with you all and just thank you for being here. Today, I've got a bit more of a heartfelt episode for you. I'm going to be speaking into when the future feels scary after loss and how to find safety again. So I'm going to be sharing a bit around grieving and this fear of the future that has personally arose for me since my brother's passing. But this fear can arise for anyone experiencing any type of loss, a loss of a job, perhaps a loss of a relationship, a friendship. There are certain parts of the brain that get triggered when we experience loss and move through grief that can actually affect the way that we see the future. So my intention through this episode is that it just grants you some awareness, some validation for any fear that you might be feeling, and tools to overcome that. So before I dive into the content too, I just want to gently remind you that May Magic is open until May 23rd. This is where you click on the form below, set your intentions, the level of coaching support that you would like, and your budget. And I get back to you within 72 hours with a personalized coaching package just for you. It has been so much fun putting these together, all different types of packages, some focused on self-love, relationships, others focused on business. Whatever your heart desires, I am here to serve you. I am so excited to work with more of you. So if you've been feeling that nudge, the link is down below and I can't wait to hear from you. So let's dive into this episode when the future feels scary. So this idea was definitely sparked in me or has been sparked in me for a while, but it hasn't quite felt like the right time to speak into it because this is something, as I mentioned, that I have been processing very deeply since my brother died. And I will say that there had been moments in time where the future has felt uncertain and scary before this loss, but losing my brother created a whole other world or reality around this. And it hasn't felt right to speak into it until now because I've thought that I had overcome this fear, but then it has continued to arise. But I do feel like at this moment in time, I've got a high level of awareness around it and I've been practicing releasing it and it's been working. I've been starting to feel more optimistic about the future, more hopeful, more excited, and I'm grateful to have those feelings back in my body, to feel those sensations again. So let's dive in. So loss can naturally create a rupture in our sense of stability and predictability in life. And I want to just acknowledge and validate any type of loss. It could be a loss of a pet, could be a loss of a family member, a loss of a relationship or a job, like I mentioned. Any type of loss can create the feeling of the rug being pulled out from underneath you. So that in itself is a very startling, unsettling feeling whenever we experience that as human beings, because it feels like we don't have that solid footing that we once previously had. And so I want to talk a little bit about what happens in the brain when we experience this type of loss. Emotional fog is very common. It can be challenging to make decisions, and ultimately it can be a place where fears of the unknown can start to rise and start to thrive in ways. For me personally, there was the fear on the future with a narrative such as, if this could happen, what else is going to go wrong? Or what happens if somebody else dies? These narratives would arise, and it felt like it overtook me in moments. So I want to acknowledge that in anyone who might be listening. If you have felt moments where fears have come up with narratives that scare you and feel like you're spiraling out, it's natural because we are human, but that's a very powerful place to bring awareness to, because that is a place where we can alchemize the emotions to create the change that we're desiring. So I hope that the next time a fear like that arises in your reality, you remember this episode, even come back to it if you're feeling a fear of the future, because we're going to talk about how to process that. So the fears, the uncertainty, the unknown, it can all feel very heavy. It can feel like a loss of control, a fear of more loss, or a fear of pain repeating because we are still finding our footing again. So the nervous system's response to grief and uncertainty is to sort of trigger, let me try to find safety. Let me try to find control. Let me try to find security or stability in this moment. So by recognizing that when the nervous system goes into a fight or flight response, looking for that safety, we can start to provide ourselves with safety in the moment to relieve and relax the nervous system. So finding safety in the moment could simply look like sitting down, putting your hand on the ground. For me personally, a lot of it looks like putting my hand on my heart and deep breathing. Very simple actions with intention of showing yourself safety can go a long way. I know there have been moments in time where just lying down in my bed, place where I feel safe and safe enough to relax and fall asleep each night, that's been supportive. So think about your life right now and what spaces or places or actions allow you to feel safe, and keep those top of mind whenever you feel the nervous system start to build up with fear. So why does this happen? What's happening in the brain? So the brain's job is to keep us safe, and specifically after trauma or deep, great loss, it begins to move into a pattern of over-scanning for threat. It wants to keep us safe from that pain or that loss happening again. The amygdala specifically becomes more active, and that is the place where we can begin to feel those anxious feelings arise, and that's the place that the nervous system gets activated. So even if nothing is wrong in the moment, those fears and those intrusive thoughts that are creating the spiral can feel very real to us. They can feel very, very scary. They can feel startling. They can feel unpredictable, a bit chaotic. Just validating the feelings of that. But as I mentioned, we can start to introduce safety when we do feel those types of responses happening in the body. So I'm going to share a couple more examples of how to feel safe again, and keep these in mind whenever you feel any type of fear. So even if it has nothing to do with loss or the future, remember that simply applying a process that allows you to feel safe when fear of any kind arises will start to decondition the nervous system and start to allow you to move into a state of internal peace and neutrality. And that is the space where then you can rebuild a strong and powerful foundation after loss. So here are some personal practices and mindset shifts. Personally, for me, letting grief move through me instead of bottling it up has been very powerful. Not comfortable at all, but just being in a state of allowance for what my internal world is presenting to me to work through has been very powerful, because it's basically like Zoe showing inner Zoe that it's safe for her to feel anything that she is feeling, and that when she does feel these emotions, when they do pass through, when these visitors, have their moment and then exit out, that there is a peacefulness, there is a calmness that comes through after that. And to me, that has been one of the biggest parts of healing grief, is the allowance of it to flow through, because there is an array of emotions that grief comes with. The fear, the sadness, the anger, the rage, the hopelessness, just to name a few. So allowing these emotions to flow through and doing my best not to identify with them has allowed for a greater sense of safety within me. Creating rituals of safety is another great aspect to show yourself safety, another great practice. So perhaps making yourself a cup of tea and choosing to drink that very much in the present moment, enjoying every sip, starting to feel relaxed, breathing more deeply, lighting candles, giving yourself the space that you need to feel relaxed, whatever that is. Maybe putting on some beautiful music that creates a softness. Maybe it is sitting down with your journal at the table and just giving yourself uninterrupted time to be in a state of flow and reflection. It could be a nature walk, right? So any type of ritual that you can recognize brings you back to a state of peace and calm, or at least prompts you to start shifting energy, very powerful. So another practice is rebuilding trust with life. So how do we do this? I know that it can be incredibly challenging when we feel like we can't really trust what reality might present to us next. But noticing small moments of joy or peace can go a long way. So for me, I know that after my brother passed, especially there was a few moments, like I would say probably around 2 to 4 weeks after he passed, where I would be out doing something. I'm thinking being here in Mexico City, going for a bike ride, where I was so much in the present moment that it wasn't that I forgot that my brother had passed away. It was that I found myself recognizing, oh, I was so fully immersed in looking at the nature and feeling the wind on my skin and moving my body, that I just felt freedom for a moment from the weight and the heaviness that had been so present for a long period of time. And so just reflecting on those moments, whether they're peacefulness, freedom, joy, can go a long way, because when we appreciate and we find gratitude for those moments, we create more of it. What we focus on expands. So starting to focus on, wow, I was able to feel lighter today. Wow, I was able to focus more on myself today. Wow, I felt so much joy today, or I didn't cry today, right? These, like, I mean, it's totally okay to cry, I want to say. But like for me, these were moments in time where I felt like I was able to expand more on the emotions that I was desiring to feel in my day-to-day life more frequently. So another practice is letting the heart feel two things at once. So for me, this has been also one of the gifts of grief, is understanding that two things can be true. I can feel deeply heartbroken, but I can also feel very grateful for my life. I can feel very sad, but I can also feel very happy for different experiences in my life. So understanding that the heart has the capacity to feel endlessly, to infinity, and allowing the heart to expand and acknowledge more than one feeling at once can be a very powerful way to heal. Because what I'm witnessing in myself through this process personally is a next level of strength. And with that strength comes the knowledge, comes the wisdom that it doesn't matter what happens in my reality. Next, I know that I am capable of overcoming it, because I know my heart more deeply, more thoroughly than ever before. And lastly, another practice, this is a personal practice that has supported me immensely, is to call in spiritual support, whether that is praying to God or connecting with my future self, my higher self, or asking for support or signs from my brother and receiving those signs. Those of you who might know, the white rabbit is a sign for me, for my brother, right? Asking for help, having faith, and leaning into that side of life has been incredibly supportive for me. There's been moments where I've just been sitting in my bed in tears, and I felt like I could feel the presence of my brother. I felt like I could feel the presence of my bestafar, my grandfather who's passed away, and God in general. And I'm sure that some of you listening have felt moments like that yourself. But for me, asking for that level of support and feeling it, whether it's only a few minutes, has created a lifetime of difference in the heaviness that I was feeling. So I hope that those practices, at least one of them, resonated with you, and I encourage you to try them out, or maybe even try something different. Try something you haven't tried before that maybe I mentioned, and start to expand your toolbox. So next, I want to talk into some tools for reclaiming safety in uncertain times. So these are going to be simple tools that you can practice pretty much anywhere. So one is a grounding exercise, putting your feet on the floor and naming 5 things you can see and 4 things you can touch. When we presence ourselves to the moment in front of us, that is when we start to shift out of a nervous system response and into a place of safety, and recognizing that even though the body might be having those intrusive spiraling thoughts or narratives, we are actually safe in this moment. The fear that we're fearing is not actually happening. And we show ourselves that by reflecting on our feet being on the ground, right? Rooting into the present moment, tuning into the senses, right? Sight, taste, touch, sound, whatever those might be, presencing yourself with the senses can bring you to a state of neutrality. Next, as I mentioned, somatic tools like putting your hand on your heart and taking deep breaths can be very powerful. Breath work is also a very powerful tool. There are tons of free breathwork resources on YouTube. One that I really like is actually Yoga by Adrienne. She does some breath work and yoga practices. That's just a light stretch in the body. It can be yoga for anxiety, for example, I believe one of them is called. And I can just pop on one of those videos for 10 minutes or so. Her voice is very soothing, and I can immediately start to feel a shift in my energy. So remember, somatic tools. Remember that you have the power to control your breath, and that can allow you to feel more safe in any moment, no matter where you are. And of course, if you have the space and time to toss on one of those videos, super helpful. Next, affirmations, always a very powerful tool, because this is utilizing self-talk, letting yourself know, I am safe, I am supported, I am held, I can trust the unfolding. Whatever it feels like your inner self needs, you have the power to affirm that to yourself and start to shift your energy. Sometimes when I don't even know what to say to myself, I'll just say, I'm safe, and I'll tune into my heart and ask, what do you need right now? And maybe the answer is love. And then maybe I shift into affirmations that are aligned with what I need, such as, I love you, Zoe, and I know that no matter what happens in the future, you're going to be more than okay. In fact, it's going to be better than you could imagine, and I love you and I've got you. Self-talk, affirmations, it can go a long way. Again, all of these tools can, and I encourage you to keep them top of mind. Even write them out in the notes folder in your phone as your support toolkit when fears arise, for example, and just start to practice them, because no matter what the fear is, you practicing safety whenever fear arises will start to create new programs, new neural pathways, new ways of being. It will start to relax your nervous system. And next, journal prompts. Journaling is such a powerful tool for allowing those feelings, those narratives, those things, get them out of your head, right? Brain dump. No longer let them live and spiral and swirl in your mind. Write them out, and you'll often see that a fear named is a fear tamed. You'll see that when you see these things on paper, you can recognize them as not true, even though when they are held in your mind and your body, they can feel somewhat true. Come back to truth is light and lies are heavy. Truth feels light in the body. It feels expansive. It feels loving. Lies feel contracting, heavy. They feel like they create blockages. Remember that. So some prompts that you could explore in your journal could be, what does safety look like to me right now? What does safety feel like? What small anchor can I come back to each day to allow me to integrate safety? Or what would it mean to be okay, even if the path looks different than what I expected? So next, let's talk about a loving reframe of the future. When you lose someone, the future isn't gone, it's simply changed. It may not look like what we expected it to look like or what we hoped that it would look like, but it is simply changed. Change is the only constant in life. And if we can shift into a place of accepting that change has occurred, and then shifting into a place of openness, such as grief itself becoming a portal to deeper levels of love, more presence, a new kind of clarity in life, shifting into that expansion can be incredibly supportive for your future, even more so than prior to the loss, because your heart has expanded. Your heart is broken wide open and now has the capacity to feel more. Like I explained, feeling more than one feeling at once. So you have the capacity now, after loss, to create an even more expanded, beautiful, abundant future. And it gets to keep getting better. Even if it doesn't feel that way, especially at the beginning, you can start to just tell yourself the story that life will get better. Every day in every way, I am getting better and better, one step forward, one moment at a time. I am reclaiming my power. I am healing. I am evolving, and I am becoming my most radiant, beautiful, unconditionally loving self yet. And another action that you can do to support you in reframing the future, if fear is present, is to do your best to reimagine the future with the loss of that person or that thing integrated. Not in denial of it, but imagining the future where you're okay. So for me, this could look like exploring, let's say, a year from now, imagining myself in Europe, happy and just living my life to the fullest, knowing that I have healed the grief every single time I've been prompted to. I have stood beside myself and walked this path with myself of healing. I've gotten to know my heart more deeply, more intimately, right? Just imagining myself okay, happy, content in the future with the loss of my brother integrated. And sometimes what I like to do is just remind myself that the more and more integrated that this loss becomes, the stronger my connection to my brother on the other side becomes. I don't know if that makes sense exactly how I vocalized it, but that's what I'm experiencing presently, is that I notice that the more and more that I heal the grief, that I allow the emotions through, I feel stronger connection and presence to my brother. It's almost like the initial deep, heavy emotions needed to be cleaned out so that I could see, feel, and witness the connection more deeply. So in conclusion, I hope that this episode supported you wherever you find yourself in life right now. And my heart goes out to you if you've experienced the loss of a loved one, because I know how heartbreaking that is. But I know that you are strong. And I know that if you're listening to this episode, you are doing all the right things for yourself. You are choosing to listen to supportive content for your healing journey. You are choosing to take next steps. You are choosing to reclaim your strength through one of the most challenging things that human beings can go through. And I want to remind you again that safety can be rebuilt slowly, gently, moment by moment, day by day. Whether you feel like the rug has just been pulled out under you, or, it feels like it's still something that you're rebuilding, know that every day you become stronger. And after this episode, my intention is that you know that you've become stronger, and that with these tools and this support, you know that you're surrounded by love, because this episode wouldn't have found you if you weren't intending for it, if you weren't actively healing and resolving the inner pain and choosing to transform that suffering, that sadness, that pain into wisdom. So, sending you a huge hug and so much love, and I will talk to you very soon.